everybody just needs magnesium so you can not be so uptight, like a stick in the mud or wherever you want to put that stick. Because we need to get nutrition. We need to
Yep.
get nourishment into the body for it to start to actually function. So then when we are ready to eat, we can actually eat and consume.
Yes, and a good multivitamin in your child should actually make them want to eat.
Like carry around some magnesium packets and be like, here,
Yeah.
smile for the
So they
day.
can remove the stick from somewhere else.
Absolutely.
Right?
So if you see like high fructose corn syrup, if you see GMOs now, and they have all different tricky names for stuff, and now they're labeling everything like boxes of colors. They're renaming the food dyes
They
instead of
are
additives
renaming the food dyes
to make it sound like it's not anything to be worried about.
Yep.
Those should be red flags.
And what they're Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Skip Wyss, and I am here as always with my beautiful and amazingly radiant co-host, my wife, Dr. Julie Wyss. How are you today, Dr. Julie?
I'm great.
Yeah, me too. I'm doing well. It is a fabulous, fabulous month that we have going on here. And I know the last few episodes we've been talking about stress on families and schedule planning. And last episode we started to talk and touch briefly on neurospectrum disorders and ADD, ADHD, and autism. And we really did not get into some of the alternative help for these children. And we know that in schools, this time of year can get extremely hard. We talked about the stress responses on families last week and how that kind of leads to a lot of autism and ADHD type symptoms in children that are super stressed, but doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to carry the diagnosis. Now, Dr. Julie, last week you had mentioned that hopefully we would get into some alternatives. So today I'd love to talk about alternatives with you, Dr. Julie. And the first thing I want to talk about with kids with ADD, ADHD, and let's just lump it up into neurospectrum disorders that have these issues or signs and symptoms thereof. What are some nutritional changes we can talk about? I know one of the first ones that we commonly get asked about is iron.
Iron is going to be one of those things that is definitely helps with an energy production within the body.
It sure does. Yep.
And like if anybody notices, like when you get extra tired or you feel run down, you just react and behave differently.
You sure do.
So if we can get a really good, like we like our liquid iron that we use from Pure Encapsulations, it works. It tastes like grapes, so it even tastes good. So it's super easy to do. But that is like sometimes the quickest thing that if we can add something, iron definitely starts to make changes.
And we'll put a link down in the comments for you all, or in our show description for you for that iron supplement. But I think iron is one of those things that commonly people they get tested, but they don't get everything tested. So they'll get F3 and F4 tested, but they don't get their ferritin tested. And ferritin is showing your storage. So is iron actually being stored, and then is your body able to grab it to use it? And a lot of the times it's not, and your ferritin level will be low even though your F3 and F4 will be normal or high.
Yeah, and say this is especially important for those picky eaters, right? If they're just eating the French fries, the chicken nuggets, like those gummy foods, which we've talked about, if you have those challenges in mouth and palate work. But if you're not eating like the red meats and getting that organ meats, your chances are like you don't even need to get tested. Like your iron is low.
So let's hit on that, because you had talked about textures, and I think that is something commonly that a lot of parents out there, including every one of you, if you're struggling with this with your children, is that textures is a huge thing, especially in kids that are on the spectrum or have neurodeflective disorders, because they lose their inability to chew, which comes to the soft palate. And I don't want to dive too far down this road, but children are, what you will find is that the top 3 foods for children that have a learning disorder is chicken nuggets, French fries, and pizza. And the reason why is because all of those foods over time will just melt and break down in their mouth, and they don't have to chew on it. Same thing with noodles. So which is all simple carbohydrates. There's no complexity to it. Causes a major blood sugar spike. Just sends everything down the wrong pathway, when really all we can do is self-correct this in getting a child back to being able to chew. Chewing the food starts digestion. Chewing food starts breaking down the food, therefore starts digestion in the mouth. And that starts stimulating everything. We find that when children have problems, commonly, they'll say, my child's never hungry, doesn't like to eat. Well, what do? We put them on a really good whole food vitamin. Yep. Why?
Because we need to get nutrition. We need to get nourishment into the body for it to start to actually function. So then when we are ready to eat, we can actually eat and consume.
Yes, and a good multivitamin in your child should actually make them want to eat. That is a huge thing. If that multivitamin that your child takes does not actually stimulate digestion and actually get them wanting to eat more, that tells me that it's not a good whole food source. It's not a good food source in general. And number 3 is that your body's not processing it like it should be. It should stimulate digestion, not just fill a box, check a box.
I'm giggling. We're talking about food, and my tummy is digesting.
Yeah, your tummy just gurgled. She's calling dinosaurs over here and gurgle.
I'd like to, like, if we're talking about foods and things, sometimes the challenge is not knowing what types of things to eat.
Yeah.
And this actually came up this morning in a conversation that most people say, well, I don't know how to read a label.
Oh, sure.
So overly processed, because that's kind of like you said, the chicken nuggets and the pizzas, those are highly processed foods. So anytime we can stick around the outside of the grocery store and eat whole foods is going to be ideal. If that's not the option, we have to be looking for prepackaged box things, of really taking note of what those ingredients are. And so if you see like high fructose corn syrup, if you see GMOs now, and they have all different tricky names for stuff, but if there's things in there that has like numbers with some colors, and now they're labeling everything like boxes of colors, they're renaming the food dyes instead of additives,
renaming the food dyes
to make it sound like it's not anything to be worried about.
Yep.
Those should be red flags.
And what they're going to use in these food dye names is natural names. They're going to call them wild blue, radiantly red, sunshine yellow. So what that
Goofy
does,
grape.
goofy grape, goofy purple. Like, so what that does is it takes your brain, and you're used to looking for terms. So if I told you, go into the cupboard and I need you to get a box of cereal, and all the cereal was in packaging, like plastic bags, you would literally not, this is how men think, you would literally not even know where the damn cereal went, because you're looking for a box. And what I mean by that is that where I'm going is that you've been trained to look for yellow dye 22, red dye 33, red dye 36, red dye 42, blue dye 12. Those are what you've been taught to look for, that are carcinogenic, that cause neurodeflective issues, that cause impedance into the nervous system, toxins, problems. So when we go and change the name, your brain doesn't register it. I go and change the packaging, your brain isn't going to register it. Same thing with canola oil. Just got switched to linseed oil. So you're going to see all of these little fancy name changes as moms and dads have become extremely educated out there, moms and dads. All of you have, on what you want to and not want to feed your children. Let's go back to iron really quick. What are some really good food sources that parents can start off with right away to try to get iron into their kids' diets?
Well, sometimes it's tricky to start, but I really like to start with any of the organ meats or like the red meats. That's going to be really high in your iron.
You want a child to try to eat liver?
You can disguise it in all different ways,
Yes,
but
you
then
can.
go for the steak.
Yes, you can.
Fine. I mean, lots of Mexican dishes, right? Like that is in those dishes.
It is.
So, you can get the organ meat, maybe it's fried, right? Pick the lesser of the evils, but we just need to start building those stores up. Salads, sometimes we can sneak into smoothies. We can get the Swiss chard, the spinach. We can get those things hidden in some of the drinks, or even broken down into different sauces and pastas. But we call them fuzzy buttons in our house.
Yeah.
And that you absolutely love them. But apricots.
I like them. I will make a self-confession, though. It's very easy to overeat on apricots. Like, I can sit down and eat a whole bag of dried apricots versus eating one or two of the actual whole food
I think
fruits.
we should I don't even know how you'd spell this differently, but do you say apricot or do you say apricot?
I say apricot.
Well, you said apricot.
Well,
so
apricots.
whichever one.
Either or. They're delicious and they're orange. They match the background today. So those are all excellent sources of iron. Now, another food that parents will talk about, especially with keeping their kids calm, commonly is they will go and take magnesium. Magnesium is something that is a natural calmative. It's a natural relaxant to the body. We've talked about this a few times on here, and we'll put a link in again to some magnesium lactate that would be excellent for you or your child to take. Dr. Julie, can you talk a little bit about magnesium?
Yeah, for me, across the board, everybody needs magnesium.
Mm-hmm.
We live in such a stressful state of energy within our environment that everybody just needs magnesium so you can not be so uptight, like a stick in the mud or wherever you want to put that stick. Everybody just needs some magnesium just to be able to relax. It's good for the body as in whole. But if you see somebody grumpy, sometimes I want to carry around some magnesium packets and be like, here, smile for the day.
So they can remove the stick from somewhere else.
Absolutely.
Right? Magnesium is excellent. It's a really good calmative. A lot of our mom and dads out there have used magnesium. There is a product out there with magnesium called Calm. We can have a link in there for that too. You can get those in citrus flavors. But that's magnesium citrate, so it absorbs really, really well. So does magnesium lactate. That is something that's derived from lactic acid. It's not derived from actual milk, which will confuse patients. So these magnesium sources absorb at very high rates in the body. This is something you want to be really particular with, especially with your children too, because if you want to be really special with your money, and what I mean by that is be a good consumer, you want stuff that's actually going to break down in the body at the right rate and actually absorb like it's supposed to. If you go and buy cheap magnesium, and what I mean by that is you go to Walmart, you go and get Nature's Best or whatever it's called out there, and it's magnesium carbonate, magnesium oxalate, they don't absorb. And in fact, in the best clinical scenario, which is in a lab at the right pH, they absorb at 23%. Why would you be putting your money into something that's only going to be going into your body at a fraction of what it should be? Therefore, all of your money you're just throwing down the drain. You would have to spend 4 times as much and take 4 times as much magnesium to get the right absorption that citrate and lactate absorb in.
And another frustrating part is well, gosh, how am I supposed to know all of these things? And that's why we have this resource for this podcast.
That's why we're
here. Prime Podcast. That's why we're having this discussion, because you can't know it all. But our hope is, at least if you start to hear some of these keywords, when you start to be able to look at a label and start to be a smart consumer, you can pick those things out, because the last thing that we want is for you to be thinking that you're investing in a really good product and doing the best thing, and there's no benefit to it, or sometimes there's altered side effects to those more chemically made compounds.
Exactly. And we look at it as, if we have a kid that's already running in a hyper-stressed environment, like we talked about on the last few episodes, is now getting your kids off to school. What are some things that you can be putting in there that's going to de-stress them internally? That's the key, is we want to get the stress down on the inside of the body. The inside of the body, the nervous system needs to be distressed. And if we can take the stress away from the nervous system, then the body stays calm. It can run in both fight or flight and rest and digest, which it's meant to work back and forth, not be just down one alley or the other. We'll see that as well. And you will see that inside alternative health therapies all the time. They will talk about the rest and digest nervous system aspect, parasympathetics. It needs to go over into sympathetics as well. People concentrate so much on the rest and digest, they forget about fight or flight. You shouldn't be sitting in fight or flight nonstop, and you shouldn't be sitting in rest and digest all the time. That's not healthy either. So to be able to stimulate a child is very important. Fight or flight, get them under a little bit of stress. Normal, have them run around, have them have a lot of fun. So when we come back to more nutrition now, we went over magnesium and we went over iron. I think something super important to look at too is we have a foods list on our app for babies, but zinc. Zinc is extremely important as well in immune system health. And chelated zinc, so it absorbs properly in the body, is even more important. Most of your children, they have a decreased immune response, which means they have a decreased gut health as well. But that immune response can be bolstered with zinc.
And zinc is one of those things that can't, like, it doesn't stay built up in your
No, it
body. You have
doesn't.
to
It's water soluble.
constantly be fulfilling it and getting it. And if
Mm-hmm.
we go back to diet, if diet is not there and we aren't consuming those foods, this is some of these things we need to start with an actual supplement. We need to start from an outside thing to be able to get it into the body.
The one product that Standard Process makes, which is, this is not a product promotion podcast, but it's just funny that we're talking about these, is they have a greens drink. And that is chock full of zinc and iron and magnesium because it's all derived from greens, beets, all sorts of really good,
and
tasty
I find it
stuff.
funny. So we actually sample that in the
We
office.
do sample it in the
and
office.
I usually gear it towards the parents of like, hey, do you want to try this? And majority of the parents are kind of like, I'll try it. But every child that has taste tested it absolutely loves it, when sometimes
Yes.
the parent is kind of like, it's okay. So in that instant, when that child is like, I like this, that is the body saying, I am missing these key nutrition elements. I am missing these minerals, these extra substance that my body needs it.
And if your child has lived in a super sweet environment where they're constantly getting sweets or things that are super intense in flavor, they're not going to like certain things. People will say like, well, that tastes healthy. Well, what's wrong with something actually tasting healthy and good for you? It doesn't mean it has to taste like a burdock. It doesn't mean it has to taste like bird seed or bee pollen. Like, it doesn't have to taste like that. Most things that are really, really healthy for you have natural sugars in them, and they do taste sweet. They are actually rather delicious.
All that sugar and processed food has actually, we talk about neurology, has actually changed your taste buds. So like, this is really good at marketing. Like these companies are really, really good at allowing your body to become accustomed, and like that it feels like it needs the carbs, it needs the sugars, and it's being deprived, and actually changing our taste buds to be able to taste the things that are actually true and good for us. And so yes, it does take some time, and maybe it's going to taste a little different to you or funny, or you might not like that flavor. But as soon as you can breach that, like make that pivot and come over and you start to eat actually like good, wholesome nutrition and really good foods, when you start to try those processed foods, you can start to taste the chemical makeup of those things.
You sure can, and you can taste all the chemicals in non-organic produce as well. Like, you can taste it, and it's when your palate starts getting online and you start getting away from all of these intense flavors that are flavor blasted and all these other things, that changes your palate, and you are 100% correct. And I love it when patients that come in here, and the members of our office that work with us, nutrition as well, when their palates start to change, you start seeing health really take over in their body, and they start really becoming acutely aware of what's good and not good for them, because their body just doesn't like the flavor of it. And sometimes you're not going to like the flavor of super healthy foods right away because your palate isn't used to that.
You were addicted to something else.
Yeah, and it can't pick up on the subtleties of deliciousness of flavor, and that's your tongue is designed in 4 different parts to pick up in 4 different flavor profiles. And if you can't do that, your mouth is shot, and then your nose is off too. So we have to help these kiddos, and zinc is going to help them bolster their immune system. Now, lastly, Dr. Julie, I want to touch on fish oil, because fish oils is something that a lot of patients do take. A lot of patients do give to their kids or try to give to their children. But the key to fish oil is DHA. DHA is the fat that your brain needs for proper cognitive development, for proper memory, for all of it. It needs that fat, and you cannot make that fat. And that comes from very good omega-3s in your diet. Now, that can come in the form of, most of the time people will say fish, cold water fish, it has to be wild, it should not be farm raised. Now, Dr. Julie, what do you recommend as far as a supplement for that then?
So I agree with the DHA. Sometimes, if we're only going to have one chance at this, I look at a really healthy ratio of DHA to EPA, because we need those both. And if we're straight up, of like, my child is like, holy cats, they are off the charts. Like, we do have an ADHD and autistic type of a diagnosis. Calamari oil is going to be my go-to, because it just hits those neurological sensors just it's like a big boost to the brain for that brain health. Otherwise, we have multiple different resources for the omega 3, the fatty acids, EPA, DHA, and actually, like we don't talk about it often. Like that is one easy test that we can do with just a finger poke
finger stick,
to
yeah.
be able to see what those levels are. And like we start with a beginning level right before you take the supplement, and then you do that. Like I want you to see like how beneficial this is, and you take that supplement for 30 to 90 days, and then we come back and we do that poke again, and you see how nutritionally deprived your body was, but that your body is just eating that stuff up.
And it's so important for your brain development, and it just wants it so bad, and how quickly you will see a change. That is one thing that Dr. Julie and I find all the time, is that when we get a child on a really good multivitamin, we get them on a little bit of zinc, a little bit of iron, and we get them on a little bit of fish oil, how much we see their bodies change, how quickly we see a change in the way they interact with their friends, the way they stay on task, the way that their immune system functions, how little they get sick, how we see gut health change, how we see defecation or going to the bathroom change in these littles. Like we see all of this amazing stuff change just from simple nutritional changes in these kiddos, because that's something that their body is literally dying for.
Well, and that's where it's one piece of the part of the pie that we actually need. It's just like I'm thinking of the analogy of like a car. Like you drive the car, but you have to put gas in the car. Well, there's no gas, it's not going to work. But you have to also do the maintenance. You have to change the wipers. You have to change the oil. Like there's the tune-ups. So just like we go throughout our daily habits, nutrition and supplements are just one of those things that needs to literally go in the tank, because we can't get everything from in our traditional meals.
Yeah, and for our moms out there, then if we're having a hard time getting everything in our nutritional meals, the most simple thing for you to take away from this is get their gut health online. Starts with chiropractic to make sure that neurology is fully talking to that gut, so they actually pull across all these good things you're trying to put into their diet. How would you like to know that there's literally a dam, like a block in the road, stopping you? You're putting all of these amazing things into your child's diet. You're trying to do it. You're putting in the good nutrition. You're putting in the supplements. But if the body's not absorbing it and not working correctly, we need to get that back online. And then to take away from this, a really good multivitamin. We'll put a link in there for that. It's called Catalin. You can get it in a chewable form too. It needs to stimulate their digestion. A good fish oil, good source of iron, and a good source of zinc. I think that would come along an incredibly long way for all of you families out there that are struggling with this, with your kids, going with focus issues, having problems with neural deflection. But remember, those are all windows into brain development. And if we can stimulate proper brain development, you're going to see massive changes in your children. Dr. Julie, is there anything else you want to add in today?
I know some moms are maybe feeling and dads are feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Please just use us as a resource.
Absolutely.
And it's, there's the all-in-one type of a supplement, but this can't be an all-in-one type of like end resort resource. So we have to have multiple things to be able to come together to boost the entire person.
And last little thing, be real careful about the gummies. If you're going to give your children gummies, make sure there's not a lot of sugar in them. They do add a lot of sugar into your gummies. So Dr. Julie, thank you so much for being on today. This was always awesome. This one was fun. I love talking nutrition with you, and I love giving our parents the simple things that they can put into their child's nutrition to just help them develop to the best child they can be. As always, give us a like below, leave a comment, let us know how you're taking care of your kids. If there's anything you need help with, just reach out to us, because Dr. Julie and I are on a mission here at Prime Family Chiropractic Centers and the Prime Podcast to get as many children healthy as possible in our lifetime. So get out there, get it done, take care, everybody. Bye now.